Good. Okay. So we just start with the workshop?
We'll do the workshop first.
Mr. Smith, is Mr. Brown going to join you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Staggers, we ready?
Good.
All righty, good evening, everyone. We're gonna flip-flop a little bit. I know everybody's used to us doing the meeting first and then doing the workshop, but we're gonna do the workshop first and then do the meeting. So we're gonna begin with, the first thing on the agenda says North Florida School District Strategic Compensation Pay Plan.
Thank you, Madam President, and members of our Board of Education. The first information item we have for you this evening is our strategic compensation plan. If you recall, we've been working with the LPPC and the CPPC, and they have presented, and one of the requests from the board was for us to essentially go take a look at and what is it that we could afford as it relates to compensation to all of our employees. So what we've been working on, and this is a completely draft at this proposal, but this is the best information we have at the moment that we want to share on what we believe going forward that we can compensate all of our employees. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Smith, our Executive Director of Human Resources, and I think Mr. Brown will be joining us shortly. Mr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski, Madam President, members of the board. So, as Dr. Paluski said, this is our Nlrsd Strategic Compensation Plan. And so,
Mr. Staggers. He's got you.
yes, sir. So the purpose of this presentation is to inform the North Little Rock School District Board of Education and the community of the Nlrsd Strategic Compensation Plan while seeking support, ideas, and feedback to transform the Nlrsd to meet the needs of all staff and students. Now. And so charged by the board, we were tasked with working with in the confines of our budget, but also seeing what we could do in regards to the LPPC and CPPC. And so, our proposed actions and timelines. So, this fiscal year, the board has already passed a resolution in regards to COVID pay. And that is calculated on the 178 days we have student contact days at a rate of $15.27. And so every employee that is able to be present for those 178 days has the opportunity to receive $2,700 of additional pay. Oops. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Staggers.
Up, sir.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
right there.
And so one of the other tasks we were charged with, it's been a difficult year. Mr. Brown, myself, Dr. Paluski, Dr. Hooper, we've been having conversations. Dr. Paluski would like to bring to the LPPC and the CPPC for us to work out the details, but a $1,500 bonus out of the building fund this year, we feel we would be able to afford in conjunction with all of our other projects we have going on. And so that's kind of the state we find ourselves in as far as the building fund and with all of our future projects and us looking forward into the future is what we think we could do for this fiscal year. Next slide, please, sir. Alrighty, so for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, next year, the retention stipend is something that we want to do within the bounds of ESSER 3, and that would be a total of $6,000 for all employees over the course of 2 years. So this retention plan is something that's been done throughout the state in order to promote a retention recruitment piece during these trying times to help attract and garner and keep staff. And so with that being said, there would be different pieces in here. There would be professional development related to the E4 transformation model. It would be in line with the new vision and strategic plan, and it would require a 2-year commitment, and there would probably be an attendance piece in there. But again, working out all the logistics of that, this is what we feel we can do with the available funds we have, and we feel this would put us in a competitive place in regards to the comparison of other districts.
Can I
ask
just
you a quick?
jump?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
On the 2-year commitment, so would they sign a contract saying, would they not get it until the end of the second year? Is my question.
So there's different models that we've discussed in regards to how that would work. We talked about it semester. So paying out at Christmas, paying out at June, paying out at the next Christmas, paying out at June. Subsequently, that's $6,000 in that fashion. And so 1,500, 1,500, 1,500, 1,500.
So they sign a contract for 2 years and they don't finish it, but they've started getting payments.
Yes, ma'am. So that's something we can absolutely look at if the board has an interest in regards to the full 2 years before you receive any of the compensation. We can have that conversation and then we can bring it back. We would obviously have to get all of this vetted by our attorneys and all of the left, right, and center of the whole process to make sure that we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish. And this is, I mean, Dr. Paluski's vision, there's a lot involved with it. And so there's going to be a lot of steps for individuals to go through to make sure they are garnering the knowledge and going through the proper training to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students.
Makes sense.
And I think the other thing I wanted to add, and certainly we've had some preliminary conversations with ADE. We'd certainly have to work out the details, but our preliminary is that, you know, this would be allowable, but we want to go above and beyond, you know, because we need to retain our high-quality staff. I envision, Dr. Redis, similar to how we did COVID pay, that in order to get that, we had kind of an agreement. And it would look similar to that. Wouldn't be a contract like we normally do, their yearly contract, but it would be that kind of parameters. And then we would work out with legal if somebody did leave us. But Mr. Smith is right, is, you know, they would kind of be receiving payments throughout those next 2 years, up to $6,000.
Yes, sir. So continuing on this slide, number 2, this is the actual raise that the board charged us with. And so Mr. Brown is going to present numbers after this slide, but the charge is for us to go back, figure out within our projects and everything else how much capital we could find in order to do something, I believe is the words of Mr. Zakreski. And so Mr. Brown will present that, and we'll be able to go over very specifically what we're going to communicate to CPPC and LPPC, so we can work out the details of how they would like to spend that money if it is to come back to the board for final approval. And then 2023, 2024. So again, the retention stipend is continuing, so it's that 2-year commitment, and the reason 2 years is used is because that's the length in which ESSER 3 runs. And so we have to have everything spent, I believe, by September of 2024, and so that would take us through the 2023-2024 fiscal year with us having everything allocated before that September date. Then there is also a prospective second raise, and so we have had conversations about how we are going to fund that, what things we are going to do. I will discuss that later in the presentation, but what we want to take you through is what the board charged us with doing in regards to the money for next fiscal year, which is what the next slide will be, and Mr. Brown is going to take over.
Should I drive the cursor with that? Will this work, the cursor? Does it work the cursor or just the click?
He needs more of a mouse, I think, is what he's communicating.
Just use the mouse pad here.
Is it possible to enlarge that, Mr. Brown?
I'll let Mr. Staggers enlarge it. Okay. So, the charge that I was given was, looking at a way to, invest money in salary schedules of both certified and classified. And what I did was went through an analysis and found that 71% of our salary expenses is for certified and 29% is for classified. So I have settled on the number of $2 million and divided that among the certified and classified according to that percentage of how we're currently spending it. So the $2 million becomes 1.4 million for certified, 1.42, and the classified becomes 580,000. So what we would do would give that money, would give that figure to both the respective PPCs and have discussions with them about how to invest that into their salary schedules. So the $580,000 on the classified side would result. It could result in a 2% raise for all people on the classified side. And if you remember that our salary schedules, you know, there's 1 or 2 schedules on the certified side, but there are approximately 25 to 30 on the classified side. So if you, the 2% raise, I was trying to get over to it here. And come down just a little bit. There we go. So on the classified side, a 2% raise would result in a $392,000 increase in operational funds, and you'll see that that's what we had calculated, roughly close, $372,000 as the cost that we could absorb. So those are the 2 numbers that we have settled on from the administrative point of view that we would communicate to the LPPC. The LPPC and CPPC, the 1.4 million would translate to LPPC if, depends on how they want to invest that in their salary schedule, but that could result in a $1,000 raise to the base. We just have to talk with them. You know, they had mentioned fixing a master's column difference. They could do that as well. We just have to meet with them, but we want to get these numbers before you just so you know the direction we're heading before we actually meet with them. And then when we meet with them and give them the numbers, we'll let them give us some scenarios. I'll run the numbers, and we'll want to keep the LPPC costs there under 1.4 million. Do you have any questions regarding?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I want to hear what LPPC has to say about it,
Okay.
so. Until they have word.
Yeah, we just wanted, we wanted to come to you first, and
Yeah.
you've asked us to say, you know, what could we afford? And I also think that, you know, at the time with that retention thing, that's a new element that gets added to this as well. So thank you for that, Ms. Woncom. You know, we're anxious to work with them and work out the details. So I think we'll kind of transition to, you know, the big question is how are we going to sustain this over time? We know we have a lot of building projects. We have a lot coming up. And then Mr. Smith and Mr. Brown are going to go through, I believe in the last slide, some of our thinking in how we can retain raises. And we all know that we need to fix the completely salary structure to stay competitive. I think we all believe that. We all believe that all of our employees need a raise, absolutely. And so we're going to discuss some of those, some of our thinking preliminarily on how we're going to retain the salary structure.
On the proposal here, it shows a prospective second raise. Is there information on a prospective second raise?
We do have some information regarding that. We're looking futuristic there, and there's some things that we would have to discuss on ways to give a second raise, and we have some elements there in his presentation we'll talk about that are tied to that.
Okay. And the 2 million raise, we can sustain that rolling forward, even with the level of enrollment we have now?
So I've submitted to the superintendent a plan, and we can go over that in, however deep you want to go, but I do have a plan to sustain that over the next 3 years with some built-in cuts that we can do and absorb over the next 2 years. And it puts us in line with, when you consider tax growth, student growth, and the reductions that we want to do, it will bring us back in line. So this is something I think we can do responsibly. That's why we're not here bringing a $4,000 raise on the front end. We're doing what, we're proposing what we can do and absorb and fit into that budget over time. And then there's some other things that if they happen, or, if things happen the way we project and hope, then we can do more.
Okay.
So absolutely, as I said, the prospective second raise, these are the other factors to consider. Meet our cost savings goals, keep ourselves solvent, make sure we get through the building process, and making sure all of those things iron out the way we think they are, and us allowing the dust to settle with some of that. Growing enrollment is a huge piece as well. That's part of all of the plans in which we've spoken about. I believe it's 500 students equates to almost $4 million. It's $3.6, $3.7 million. And so.
And that's exactly what we've been talking about. I think that's a realistic goal. If we just grow 500 students, that's $3.6 million, and we believe we could invest that in long-term sustainability of our salary schedules. And that takes a commitment from all of us. As we recruit, as we build innovative programs for kids, I believe that's a very attainable goal. And everybody benefits. Students first.
Absolutely. One of the discussions we had is that's 35 students a school site?
That's 35 students a campus.
A campus. So we're looking at all of those initiatives right now and rolling that with E4 and everything that the superintendent is bringing forward. Also, a solar agreement we're going to start to explore. We've already started with synergistics in regards to some cost savings associated with that. Dr. Paluski actually came from a district where I believe he communicated that they sold money back to the grid whenever they didn't use all of the power. And so not only can it be a cost savings, but it can be an initiative to hopefully bank some money as well. And then a millage. That's one of the pieces of the conversation too. We've studied the other millages. Whenever we went through the last millage, we kept our M&O, Brian, at 25 mils, which is the state minimum. And there are other districts and examples that are very close to us that don't operate at the state minimum. And so it's a conversation piece, but we would like, to look at the other three first and see how those initiatives go before we explore that option. Are there any questions?
Ms. Timber? Ms. Walker?
Waiting on the report from the,
I'm sorry, Ms. Williams.
yeah, I said I'm just waiting on the
Oh.
report from the LPP.
Once we bring it to yes,
Yep,
ma'am.
That's our next step. We want to come to you first, share. This is kind of our preliminary thinking. So we're going to go to work, I believe, Monday, working collaboratively with them on ironing out the details. And we'd like to come back by the 16th with a finished proposal for your review and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And
You're very welcome. I'm up next as well.
Thank you both.
so just stay right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So we're ready for the 2022-2023 proposed district calendar drafts.
Yes, ma'am. So, again, I believe it was Ms. Barker that came up and spoke to everyone at the last meeting. and communicated that we would be finalizing our drafts and sending those out for staff survey. And at the last meeting, we had decided that whatever the staff voted on, that would be the draft that we bring before the board. And so that actually closes tonight, our survey, and we will be having that discussion on Monday. But these are, there's not a great deal of difference. There's a little shifting in regards to parent-teacher conferences around these two options. And there is 1 day difference in regards to the end date. The 2nd is a Friday, and the 5th is a Monday. And if the board will recall, I've had that conversation, I believe, in your guys' weekly board reports about the new law, Act 1237, that has pushed the start of school back to the 22nd. Will be this year, and so that's why we are going to end in June, is because we were pushed back a week from where we started this year.
I was just curious, I couldn't figure out what's making the end day change.
Yes, ma'am. So if you'll look on the June 2nd calendar, the PD day is, it is January 2nd, where that's embedded on the parent-teacher conference days on the 5th. Do you see that difference? And so the students don't come back until the 4th on the June 2nd calendar.
Gotcha.
But we also, parent-teacher conferences are after school on those days. And so it would be a non-student contact day on the 5th calendar whenever we have the PD and parent-teacher conference day. It would be a noon to 6 model as opposed to a 4 to 7 broken up over 2 days.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have any questions?
Just a comment, Madam President. Mr. Smith, remind me again, so we've given this to LPPC and CPPC for their feedback.
We've had preliminary meetings, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But the survey has gone out to our employees.
Yes.
Okay, and that closed.
That closes tonight. Or no, excuse me, tomorrow. It closes tomorrow.
Gotcha. And then the next time that you're going to be meeting with them to discuss that results would be when?
Monday is the called meeting.
Okay. Because one of the things I would suggest if we haven't done it is to give a survey. I don't know if that's something we can do tomorrow for over the weekend, to survey our families. I think that's important to hear their voice of our parents. Would be good data for us as well as LPPC and CPPC. Maybe that's something that we could push out tomorrow. I'm always curious what our parents think, and I think if we haven't had an opportunity for let them to weigh in on our calendar, I think they should, because they're impacted by it.
Ms. Wonkum?
Question, I'm noticing
Yes,
we've
ma'am.
got an early release built in also,
Yes, ma'am.
so that's something new.
It
So
is.
tell me more about that.
Yes, ma'am. So that will actually be forthcoming next meeting. What the guidance we've received from the state is that we have the option to have an early release built within our calendar. And so the way we do that this year is that would be bank time. And so I believe every week we bank about an hour and a half worth of time. So you are required to have a 6-hour contact day with your students. And so we bank about 15 minutes, maybe a little more every day. And you have to work with the minimum. So whatever level is the lowest amount, that's your bank time, because everybody has to receive that 6 hours. And so the conversation is kind of like we worked with Virtual Fridays. There's still a pandemic. There's still things going on. It's giving our teachers some relief. And what we received from the state it's actually easier from our calendar standpoint that if we built those days in. And so that was the recommendation we took. We brought it to LPPC and CPPC, and this was the days that the administration and them agreed upon.
So as a parent perspective, what are we looking at for those hours?
So the way it's set up right now, it would be an hour and a half early release, is the way it's
So
set up right now.
Across the board, hour and a half early. So when
Yes.
elementary gets out at.
Just
was
stagger it
2:40,
back.
I think?
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am.
It's an hour and a half earlier. Middle school, whenever they get out, hour and a half earlier. High
Yes.
school.
Yes, ma'am.
And then with that, ball games, how does that reflect on our sports?
So it shouldn't have any impact, from my understanding. I mean, we would just, whatever the agreed upon games are through the AAA in each schools, we would just have a regularly scheduled event in regards to that. I'm sure if there's practices or things of that nature, then the teachers and coaches and everybody will still be there, of course, but the students will be the only ones that will go home early. And so if there are some adjustments that need to be ironed out or done, we'll make those as needed.
Okay, very good.
Ms. Person West?
So basically, this is just kind of used as maybe like a prep time or early kind of gather your thoughts or,
This can be
What-
used for anything.
Anything, okay.
And the way we're having the conversation with our building leaders right now is that if they need some social emotional time, if they need some time for grading, they have the pulse on their individual building. And so as long as they work it up the food chain and have the conversation with the executive directors, Dr. Hooper and Dr. Paluski, and everybody's okay with the way that time is being spent, then we're going to use it to provide relief in some form or fashion.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Williams, any questions? Ms. Temple? Mr. Steele, did you have any questions?
No questions at this time. I do have on the Amboy issue.
Okay, I'll remember that.
And if I can just add to that, Madam President, is, we keep listening to our teachers, and we're actually going to come next month with a similar proposal for this year. That would be about an hour and a half. As we keep listening, I am concerned about the social emotional well-being of our teachers. They're working extremely hard. This is a very difficult year. We want to give them the opportunity to do additional planning, additional grading, the things that they just need more time doing, and given some flexibility. And we did do a survey, and Mr. Smith is going to share some of those survey results, but we have a lot of support from our employees that are in support of it.
Overwhelming support.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
We're down to the last item on the workshop, which is Amboy Elementary School entrance, exit, parking, and reorganization proposal.
Madam President, members of our board, I welcome Mr. Hatch, our supervisor of maintenance. This has been an ongoing, and what we promised you that once we got more information from the Arkansas Department of Transportation and more details, we would come back and inform you of that. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hatch.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, board members. Yes, we have been at this for some 9 months now. And I think we finally have a plan together, and in concept, that plan has been approved by the Arkansas Department of Transportation, as stated by the letter that you were supplied with in your package. There's still a lot of work to do on here, because before they will approve and release it for construction, we have to have the absolute plans in place to do that. However, conceptually, they have approved it. So basically what this does is allow us to move forward with the first step of that project, which would be to purchase the property out front, okay? Because this is really what we've been waiting for from the Department of Transportation, so that it would be safe to purchase that property and not get stuck with it and not be able to do what we've got planned.
And Mr. Hatch, do you recall the total projection on the project? At
The
least
total projected cost from McClellan Engineers, that was also provided in their package. Projected cost and the estimate of $602,000 and some change.
And then purchase the property on top of that?
And purchase property on top of that, yes.
And do we have that preliminary number on?
Mr. Brown, do you recall that number on that property? I don't recall.
I can look it up.
Wasn't it like
It was
about
about
90?
100.
Well, I think it was about 90,000,
Yeah.
something like
Yes.
that, yeah.
And that was the non-negotiated, but that was,
Right.
the preliminary cost.
Ms. West, we'll start with you since it's your school.
I really don't have any questions on it. I mean, it always made sense and plain to me. I was just trying to decipher a map, cause it was kinda light. I
The
couldn't-
traffic flow?
Yeah, it's kinda condensed all there together, but,
Well, I have representatives from the engineering company who produced that drawing, and they
Okay.
can come forward, and I've got
Help us
Mr.
out
Randy
on it.
Tolbert with me, who did the traffic studies and everything, and then I have Dan Baranek here from McClellan Engineers, and they can shed light on anything, any questions you might have on the conceptual drawing there.
I'm Dan Burrow.
is it on? I don't think it's on.
Excuse me.
Wow.
Is that better? I'm Dan Buronic from McClellan Engineers.
And I'm Randy Tolbert with Peters and Associates.
Thank you.
I would guess my question, since you all have seen the property, how do you think this would better, I'm looking at, so the added, is it additional spaces that I'm looking at in the gray shaded area that where the property for sale is currently right now? Is that what we're,
You wanna take it? Yeah, there's additional parking towards that property that you had purchased.
okay,
And that property would also allow you to close that portion of the street to allow it. And then we would add some drive lanes through there so that we would have more flow through the parking lot and just not have single stacking.
okay, got you. So you would have, let me make sure I'm making sense of this. So on MacArthur, you're going down MacArthur, so you basically have two different options as far as the flow of traffic. If you keep straight all the way to the further end, where it's just now an exit, you can enter there and you can park in those particular added spots, or you can just kind of flow on through to the other side, right? Am I reading this right?
Can we pull up the image on the screen and I can maybe point to it or talk you through it? I thought I saw it in your packet. It was before that.
It might look a little bit, if I see that color, I'm making a.
Can you
This-
pull-
do you ha-
it-
is it
the
this
print-
map
is the
in here?
print in there? You have the print in there?
I think it was
Mr.
before
Stokes?
that PowerPoint,
It is.
right after the calendar.
Yeah, it's the site layout option, page 14. Yeah,
There
that's
we
it.
Okay. There'll be access off to MacArthur, but it won't be the primary access.
Okay.
The goal here was to try to improve the flow down Auburn so we don't continue to have a lot of stacking down Auburn like we currently do. And so the way that we're trying to do that is to provide dual stacking in front of the school, and that's the two lines with kind of the center hatch,
Mm-hmm.
the northernmost part or the top part. And then another problem that we identified was that exiting was a challenge. Mr. Hatch addressed some of that about the time we started with allowing access out to MacArthur, and we're just trying to kind of improve that on the left side there, by trying to improve that, but right now, there's already a fire department exit there that can be used. But what was happening is, lots of times people would stack, and they wouldn't be able to move the line, and they wouldn't be able to load cars. And so what we're trying to do is provide maybe dual exits on the, in between the parking. The hatch parking on the bottom is actually new, because Can we just turn it off?
You know, I don't even think that one is on.
Yeah, I don't
Doesn't
think
sound.
we're working. Okay.
I'm just talking loud, or trying to. Can you hear me? It's not me. How about now?
Yeah, now I can hear you
I
good.
turned it off. So the hatch there on the bottom is new parking. The school had asked if additional parking could be provided in the front, and we like that because it gives some additional parking for day, or daycare or kindergarten, I guess, pre-K types of kids that have to get picked up and dropped off. It also gives some additional staff parking along there. But you can see the two arrows there allow us to have dual departure through the parking lot so that we can also stack vehicles there. Not necessarily for pickup, but if somebody's trying to leave, they can come back that way and make a left-hand turn out on MacArthur.
And then the space that's right here in the middle, is that just like a grassy area? That would just be.
That
like a
could be
grassy
grassed
area?
or it could be cleaned up. I mean, one of the things that we talked about and the benefit for the school there is you get rid of the not exactly attractive cover and building that are out there now on that property that you'd purchase. So that could be landscaped or sodded or new sign for the school or something could be placed in that area in the future. Just a better front door.
Let me add to that a little bit. Right now, as the parents pick up the students and they go out the existing drive, they only have 200 feet of queuing there. That's why it's backing up so bad. With this plan, it gives us 570 feet per lane to be able to stack or queue in. I don't see that filling up ever and blocking the pickup drop-off area like it does now.
So would this prevent, or would it help the Auburn Street, like where the neighborhood?
Well,
like
it would
section
actually
over there?
help. What we're, right now, what we observed was, we observed 1,500 linear feet of queuing that was occurring from the start of the pickup drop-off all the way to the back of the queuing in the school PM peak. We're getting, let me get my numbers here, about 500, let me see. We're getting about 500 more linear feet on site that we can stack those vehicles. They're still going to stack on Auburn, but they're not going to, we don't expect them to go all the way to MacArthur anymore and stack on MacArthur. And that's what RDOT was happy about, just getting them off the state highway. And from the drives that you were talking about on the west side, they could be likely for emergency vehicles, but you could open it during non-peak hours, just as a shortcut in for parents or visitors. But it would need to be closed for the peak times to force everybody in and out the other way.
Did you have any more questions, Ms. Smith?
I was just trying to get my eyes to focus on the front. I
Ms.
got it now.
Wonkum?
Thank you.
So with the purchase of this property, do we know if the gas tanks are still located there? No one knows that answer yet, correct?
I don't know that answer.
I thought they had said previously that they had been moved. They were
Then they
already,
came back and said they
they
were
were still
wrong.
there?
So that's why we don't really know if they're there or not. So my question is, with us being a school, if the tanks are still there, what's EPA gotta say about that? So that's kind of my concern there. So moving past the tanks, whether they're there or not, what's the length of the construction if we move forward with this?
I don't have a date for you right now. I mean, it's preliminary. It would take months for sure. I mean, it's not something that would be done, probably for your next beginning of school year, but it would be something that we would try to do over a summer period of time, where we started construction as soon as school ended and then tried to get it done in 3 or 4 months where it was done by the time school resumed, because we realized that it's got to be you got to have access. And so we'd have to work through that. So there may be phases of it where maybe you do that lower part and then you have to reroute some stuff, but it's probably at least 3 months worth of construction.
Okay. And then piggyback, did I hear you say on the Auburn Road, so are we closing some of that because we're building those parking spaces? Did I understand that?
So in the area that's kind of hatched right there, you can see Auburn kind of upside down written.
Right.
Auburn exists as a one-way road from your east entrance, well, basically even further east. It's one way from back by the old fire station. With this, being able to purchase that property, then we can close that road and do what we want. We'll probably have to retain some easements through there because there's some utilities. But that's what we're talking about rerouting. So basically, the traffic from Auburn would come out these 2 drives on the right-hand side or the east side. So if you were a resident there, it actually benefits you
as Randy said a minute ago, there may be a few times during peak. We've tried to include some gates so that we could limit it, because of course, if we leave that entrance on the east open, we may get some people who want to try to cheat in line and sneak in that way. But during non-peak times, it's an excellent opportunity to get to the front of the school, or for those individuals who live in those 4 or 5 houses to the east and come in and get through that way.
Well, that was my next question. Have we spoken to those individuals, those homeowners, that this would impact the most? So have we as a school district reached out to them to inquire and let them know what our possibility plan is?
We certainly can, Ms. Welcome. I don't believe that we have.
Because it would impact them just as much as it would impact us, being the school district, being the school itself. So, moving on again, coming back to the property hypothetical, $90,000, hypothetical tanks being removed, placing grass, we're looking at adding 18 parking spots by your graph at the tune of $692,790.36. Is that what I'm understanding to be correct?
You're adding those parking spaces. You're also adding the parking spaces on the east side. And you're adding quite a bit of drive lane demolition. It's not just a few parking spaces, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
You're building new road because this new entrance on the east side is all new. So we're not just adding a handful of parking spaces for that cost.
And then what about the state or the city? Will they be assisting us in this expense, or is this full price tag on us?
We could check that, but I believe because it's our property, we would retain the cost of that. I mean, it's not city property, it's the school district's property. So we would be responsible. But we can double check that. I believe that's correct, Mr. Hatch.
We can double check that.
Yeah.
So even though we're improving the homeowner's frontage, really, those 4 or 5 houses to the side.
Sure, we can absolutely have that conversation with the city if there's any kind of, since we are improving, and you do make a good point, we are improving the quality of that area. I'll be happy to speak with the mayor on that.
I'll have more follow-up questions, but I'll pause for now.
Okay. And before we move on, Mr. Hatch, in our weekly board report, would you please find out about the tanks?
Yes,
and
sir.
include that in our weekly board
Yes,
report
sir.
under your
I'll
section.
I'll look into that tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Williams, any questions?
No, great report, and I loved every inch of your report about showing the concerns, all the beautiful pictures. It was nice, awesome, and I can see the need that we have for the school. Thank you for that.
Ms. Temple?
I have no questions.
Mr. Steele?
Yes, thank you. There's been obviously a lot of work done on this. Has the Department of Transportation identified when there will be a public hearing? If so, I want to know what our involvement will be in that public hearing.
Mr. Steele, I'll try to answer that. Randy may have an additional answer. Typically, this wouldn't be a public hearing type of project for RDOT. What this would be is it would be a permitted project. It's not a RDOT project, so it's basically just the school district asking permission to be able to do these improvements. So normally, we wouldn't see a public meeting unless it was a publicly funded project like a new road or new intersection or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I see. Mr. Superintendent, I just like to, from my opinion, it would be a good idea. This will impact that community, and everybody who has to deal with the traffic. It's certainly larger than those individuals who are just concerned about their kids and their loved ones in the school. It's going to impact that entire community. That community is a very engaged community. I think Ms. West can tell you they have a strong neighborhood association, and I would hate for us to go in and go too far far down the road. We haven't done our due diligence on the front end to make sure that there is public acceptance and buy-in on this project.
Sure, Mr. Steele, I think you make a good point. I think Ms. Wonka made a good point too. Absolutely, we can do a couple community forums, specifically out in the Amboy. Mr. Pennington is here. We could do it right at the school. We could have these gentlemen and have a couple, sessions to seek feedback. I think those are great ideas that you've offered, as well as Ms. Wonkum. We can do that. Be happy to.
Anything else, Mr. Steele? Okay. Ms. West?
I was just gonna say too, I know we have a neighborhood association meeting coming up the third Monday of this month. That will be at the Burns Park Hospitality House. And, more than,
Yeah,
like we did
maybe
with
what we
last-
could do is we could do that one, we could offer that one night, and then we could offer one at the school
Yeah.
on another night and publicize it through the community. So we could do two of them.
Okay, so I'll let them know that if you all are available, that, I
Yeah.
don't have my calendar in
Sure.
front of me, but the third Monday of this month, and then, just to speak with someone,
The 17th.
17th, okay, to speak with some of the constituents there in the
Sure,
area.
we'd be happy to
So
do
that'll-
that, and then we'll
I'll-
work
yeah.
with Mr. Pennington to pick a date for his community, and we'll do the same there.
And you're more than welcome to come, Mr. Pennington, anytime to the,
You have a time for that?
yes, it is at 6:30.
That is MLK Day.
Okay, so, I tell you what, I'll
So,
find out
yeah,
and I'll let
just
you
let
know.
us know, and then we can publicize both
Yeah.
events on one flyer,
Okay.
as an example.
I'll
And we'll
find
make
out.
sure that you're aware of it.
I didn't even think about that one. Absolutely right.
Any more questions? Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great
Appreciate
report,
you.
thank you.
And
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you
and
for
I'd be
coming.
remiss if I didn't say that I was filling in for Caleb that y'all all liked the last time. The one with the flowing hair. Sorry.
You did a great job.
Well, yours still flows, it just flows a different direction, it's,
That's funny.
All righty, being that was the last item on the workshop, we're gonna move into the special meeting. Any public comments? There being none, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda.
Dr. Reddas,
Present.
Mrs. Williams. Here. Ms. Person West,
Present.
Mrs. Temple,
Here.
Mr. Zakreski, Mr. Steele,
Here.
Mrs. Wonka. Here.
Righty. Executive closed sessions per North Florida School District Policy 1.14A stating that private or closed discussions by the board may occur as part of a regular or special board meeting. Executive sessions may be held only for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee, or to discuss matters of pupil punishment. If requested by the parent or legal guardian, no resolution, agreement, or motion considering in the executive session shall be legally binding unless the board reconvenes in public session and presents the item for vote of the membership. Further, Arkansas Code Title 25, Chapter 19, Section 106, 2C1 states, the specific purpose of the executive session shall be announced in public before going into executive session. Please join me in the executive closed session for discussing the following matters: employment, appointment, promotion, and resignations of employees. Mr. Steele? Tracy? Thank you for joining.
She gone.
Are we back online? All righty, we're back in session. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President,
I don't want that job, I'm sorry.
it's been a long day. Madam President, members of the board, the superintendent recommends the employment of personnel as discussed in executive closed session.
I second that.
I
Madam
need-
President,
Yes.
I so move that we accept the recommendations of Dr. Paluski.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second, being that it is a personnel matter, we can have no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it, it's been adopted. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I so move that we adjourn. We vote each part.
What's that?
We vote each part to the part, yeah.
Oh, we just voted for the employment personnel.
Yeah, for you too.
Oh, when do we do that?
Did you do that?
No, we will do that in